Hello, my fellow readers. This is iDarkSymphony777 with another fanfiction review. As always, I'll be leaving a link to the story in the description below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, click on that bell for notifications, and leave a comment in the comment section below on your thoughts on the story and any future fanfictions you want me to read or review. So, the story I am reviewing this time is called Super Koopalings Episode 1. By Starlit Duck. It is a Mario fanfiction, and honestly, this story actually kind of came out of the blue about last month, when Starlit Duck herself actually contacted me and asked me, said, "Hey, can you review the story for me, please? Pretty please?" I'm like, "That's fine. It's fine. I'm happy to review this one, but everything going on at the time, it was just so busy, I wasn't able to properly be able to review it or get into it until just this week. I mean, it's a short story. It's like 40,000 words, so take it as you will. So, let's get into the story itself. So, the story starts out with Roy Koopa. He's wandering down the street. He hits some other Koopas. They all say no because one thinks he smells. The other one has a boyfriend, so take it as you will. And he runs into this Koopa-human hybrid called Celia. They hide out when a Lakitu gets bullied. He's like, I'm throwing lightning bolts. Ah! And Celia says, "I have a secret. It involves Bowser. Can I see him?" And Roy's like, "Oh, sure, yeah. And so he takes them to the castle. They meet all the other Koopalings, and, well, not Bowser Jr., at least I don't think so. And then Celia goes, "I'm Bowser's daughter!" And everyone's like, "What?" And then I'm like, "What?" And then my Mawile plushie is like, and she's saying nothing. They find out that Bowser's like in the Bean Kingdom, is just going on vacation. Flashback to Super Mario Sunshine. "Mario, how dare you ruin my family vacation? How dare you insinuate Princess Peach is Bowser Jr.'s mom?" But listen here. I couldn't resist referencing Super Mario Sunshine when I heard the vacation thing. I couldn't. I'm sorry, I just couldn't. So they go to the Bean Kingdom. They kind of sneak onto a train and stuff like that. And then they meet a bunch of dry bones, and then a dry Donkey Kong? Is that it? Dry Kong. It's like, I don't know how to properly describe it. It's like a skeletal necromantic monkey. It has like a lot of barrels, so I'm guessing a Kong. And so, they saved, and Bowser was captured by him, and Kamek too. Kamek's there. And Celia goes, "I'm your daughter!" And then Bowser's like, "Oh, yes, you are! And then they get home and said, "Bowser, she's not my daughter. I only did it to make her feel better because she gave me the puppy dog face." And they're like, "Okay, we gotta tell her." And then Bowser tells her, it's like, but Mommy lied to me. And then she converts her mom, and she's like, "Okay, I lied to you because your actual husband ran away for some reason. They met their grandparents. His grandparents are very racist." And then Roy and Celia go on an adventure to find Celia's father, and they do in the Illusion Woods on Dinosaur Land. And they find him. And the story ends. Yes, I know there was like a whole bit with like the Starbit Alliance sort of thing. But that's not really consequential right now in terms of the grand scheme of things. Yeah, they help him. Yeah, they do kind of help him find the father. But yeah. So the plot is. Sorry, my eye's actually irritating me right now. So the plot is kind of very scattered. Like it's like, okay, you got Roy walking down the street, meeting a girl. Girl says, "I have a secret, like I'm Bowser's daughter," and then they meet it, and then they immediately go to Toad Town, get dressed, go to Bean Kingdom, get kidnapped by a monkey. Bowser, the whole of your daughter, not really thing. Then Celia and Roy go look for Celia's dad. I mean, for a story like this, it was way too short. Like that was the problem. That's the problem I thought with the plot, because you had essentially 3 different plots, and you tried to go through them in a 40,000 word story. And I thought, that's a curious thing. And then I realized that, and then I saw the end of the first chapter, not the first chapter, the last chapter, and it's revealed, so this is my first story. It's like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Usually when it comes to when author or first trying out writing, like i.e. fanfic and stuff like that, they usually end up, kind of getting the fundamentals wrong. It's like, it's understandable what's happened. So I can't really throw too much blame onto Starlit Duck for this. I can only do so much when it comes to stuff like this, because you're a beginner, you're just starting out, you're still trying to iron out the kinks in your writing style, you're trying to figure out what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and so there's a lot of moving parts for a beginner to learn basically the writing 101 sort of thing. So I can kind of forgive the fact that the story is so short, but I can't really forgive how clustered the story feels from a storytelling point of view, because I'll talk more about it in pacing, but it does feel very cluttered. Characters, there's really only 2 main characters. That's Roy and Celia. That's who we're going to talk about. Roy actually reminds me of Sonic Boom Knuckles. Like, he's an idiot, but he has wise words of wisdom every once in a while. And that's what it kind of reminds me of. It's like, I mean, if it was any other Koopaling, this really would not have worked. But Roy has always been presented among the fandom as the dumb one. So him being like a Mario version of Sonic Boom Knuckles kind of strangely works for him. I mean, yeah, his character is basic, but then again, so is Knuckles. So is Sonic Boom Knuckles. He didn't really change that much in Sonic Boom either. So I could throw Starlit Duck a bone. I could throw her a bone for this, or just that bare basic stuff with Roy, because she just basically took Knuckles and just said, okay, here's Knuckles. But he was pink, and he had a shell, and he was a reptile. And he had one... sorry, I mean... sorry, I went on a tangent there. Anyway, so the big one is Celia. She's technically the main character. Now, Starlit Duck is actually very worried, because Starlit Duck did say that I was 16 when I wrote the story, and I'm worried that she's Mary Sue. Don't worry. But she's a Mary Sue. I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. Let me explain. She's a Mary Sue in the sense that because not only is this her first story, but this is also the first story of a series. Like, this is episode 1. She's at episode 22, 23 now. So when it comes to situations like this, I try and gauge it based on in a bubble, by gauging her character as it stands in this one singular episode. I did the same thing with Bowzelda when I did Walkazoo stories, and I don't know what's with like the whole thing with like Koopa women getting like the Mary Sue treatment. I don't know why. I don't know. And I said Bowzelda did kind of straight the line between Mary Sue and not Mary Sue, so he pretty much became preferential. With Celia, in a bubble, in episode 1 by itself, she is a Mary Sue. Like, she does cross that line, but she does have potential to leave that Mary Sue trait because the story does portray her as very naive. Like, she was very gullible. Like, she was bullied. Yeah, there was stuff like that. But then once you kind of got in the situation with her father and his backstory, it kind of humanized her with her kind of like, you know, trying to getting angry. Like, she wants to punch her father. They beat the crap out of her father for leaving her. But then when she starts finding out what happened, she kind of gets, like, sorry for him. Like, she gets sympathetic, like, saying, like, he didn't want to leave, but he was kind of forced to. And, you know, it's like, there is work to be done with her. Like I said, in a bubble, she is a Mary Sue in the context of just episode 1 by itself. But I have a feeling she probably shows up, more often. She probably shows up in other episodes, so I'm guessing more likely the authoress probably just was able to work on her enough that she probably leaves being a Mary Sue. But that's pretty much it. The other Koopalings, they're there. Like, literally every other character is just, they're there. Waste of opportunity. And that's all I'm going to say. Grammar-wise, it's actually pretty well done, well structured. The sentence structure is fine for what it is. It has a very sitcom-y feel to it. Like, it reads like you're watching a sitcom. And I know that's very weird, but it kind of makes it strangely entertaining for me. Sort of like, I've never been a big fan of sitcoms. Like, there's one or two sitcoms I've liked, but usually they're just all very samey to me. So having a story that kind of reads like a sitcom is at least kind of unique. Like, I kind of seen somewhat similar situation, but those have always been like humor stories, like parody stories. So it kind of works on like a short-term entertainment sort of thing, like, oh, popcorn film sort of thing. But other than that, it's fine as it is with the sentence, with the grammar and sentence structure and stuff like that. Pacing. This is the part. I kind of get, again, with the sitcom scenario, I get the story being short, because usually when you're trying to do like a sitcom or an episodic kind of thing, it makes sense for the story to be short. Like, and that makes sense. Like, it's 40,000. As far as I could tell, like, a lot of the other stories are like anywhere from 20 to 40,000, so it makes sense for that amount of words to be used in this story. However, the problem is, in conjunction with the plot, there's just too much going on, and you're kind of just going through everything so fast that everything kind of just doesn't feel important. Like, it doesn't carry any weight to them. Like with the zombie monkey, like, you foreshadow it, and then it shows up, but the monkey kind of it's just such an afterthought that I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, you could have just cut this out, gave some more words to either, like, building up Roy or Celia's characters, any of the other characters, or just kind of expanding on the plot a little bit. It just felt like there's a lot of unneeded things happening in the story that didn't need to happen. And that kind of falls under the pacing thing. It's like, because with a story like this, with them, you know, with Roy meeting Celia, and, you know, Celia finding out that Bowser's her father, them going to the BB Kingdom, getting kidnapped by a monkey, fighting the monkey, Celia finding out Bowser's not her father, and then Roy and Celia's trip to find her father. That's a lot of stuff to be able to put into a 40,000 word story. Like, that's a lot of words. And I thought, with a plot like this would make sense if it was, like, double, like, around 70 to 80,000 words, so that way you can try and, like, put as much breath into it, like, as much space into it as possible to get the plot you want. But then I realized at the end of the story, this was a sitcom, this was like an episodic sitcom-y thing. So having it be 70, 80,000 words just would not work. And thus, I honestly think Starlet Duck was kind of put in a rock and a hard place with trying to keep her core idea alive. A very short, simple story that's more just fluff than more just simple plot stuff and fluff than anything else, instead of telling a very compelling story. And also, something had to be sacrificed along the way, so I guess she kind of picked, just kind of rush everything and see where the dominoes lie, sort of deal. Like it was a lesser, I think, probably from her point of view, it was probably lesser of two evils. But that's pretty much it. Would I recommend this story? I can't. I really can't, mainly because I can forgive some of the things. Like, I can forgive, the Koopaling being, I'll say, like, the story is called Super Koopalings Episode 1. More than likely, the other Koopalings are probably going to be the focus in other episodes, so I can forgive that. I can forgive the story being short because that's kind of what the author is going for. I can kind of sort of forgive the story being very short, like, again, going on that episode, like that whole episodic sitcom style. I cannot forgive the plot in conjunction with the very fast pace, like way too fast paced for what the author was trying to do in terms of telling the story she wants to tell. Those two factors combined just completely sink everything together and kind of just sink the story. Favorite part, nothing really stands apart, so, let's just move on to what would I fix. So, with this story, we have to take into account two things. One, these stories are meant to be short, so keeping it 40,000 words is probably going to be the best chance of telling this type of story in this certain way. But we also have to take into account there is so much going on. So the first thing I would do would be the whole zombie monkey thing. Get rid of that. I like the idea. I think the idea has legs to take it in any certain direction, like a comedy direction, a drama direction, an adventure direction. You can even do something very horror-y with the zombie monkey in the context. Possibly, the monkey being a lich sort of thing. Like, there's a lot of directions you can take that idea. The idea just can't be here. I would honestly suggest making it its own either its own episode or making it an actual full-length story. Like, make the monkey, depending on what you do with it, like, you can either make it short, like a comedy sort of thing, or you can make it like something like 90,000 words and make it like either a horror or an adventure, like a horror adventure sort of thing, like the monkey turns into the main villain, and then kind of make it like a movie sort of thing, like like how Ed and Eddie had episodes, but the very last episode of Ed and Eddie was a movie. Like, you can do that with the monkey idea. Like, the monkey idea actually has potential. Like, the whole idea, like, no one knows where it came from, no one knows what it's doing. People just know it takes stuff. There's a lot of potential with that core idea. I just think the idea was wasted in episode 1 because it was just a throwaway thing. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get rid of the whole monkey thing, keep it on the sidelines, make it, and probably give it its own episode, or make a movie based on, like a movie based around it in the future. And then you have the two plots. You have the first plot being Celia and Roy finding Bowser, and later the Koopalings finding Bowser for Celia to tell Bowser, "I'm your daughter," and also Roy and Celia going on an adventure to find her dad. What I think should be done is split these ideas into two episodes. Episode 1 being Roy and Celia going to meet Bowser. Episode 2, Roy and Celia going on an adventure to find Celia's dad. So that way you have more time for each episode, like both sides of the plot to breathe a little more, so that way you have more time working on at least work on the characters while still keeping that brevity that you're trying to go for. With episode 1, keep everything either in Bowser's castle or in Celia's home. That's it. Basically, how the story kind of started the same way, with Roy hitting on the Koopas, and then Celia and Roy meeting each other and going into Celia's house. Have Roy offers that Bowser's in the castle. I can take you there. She goes, okay. And so Roy takes Celia to Bowser's castle. But every time they go to find Bowser, one of the Koopalings interrupts them. It could be in any order, really. And so we're introduced every single time they go to the castle to a different Koopaling. The whole point of episode 1 should be to introduce us to the cast and crew. Like I'm treating this like a sitcom. And with each Koopaling, you should try and give us a baseline of what you're trying to do with those characters. And I think this is the best way of doing it. So like, say, for example, with Ludwig, like, you can talk about the whole naming conventions of Koopas. You can talk about how Ludwig's, like, the smart one. He's, like, the one that he's technically Bowser's second in command if Bowser isn't disposed. You can do a lot of different things. You can have Wendy be, like, the pretty one, like, the very vain one. Like, you already have Iggy being the smart one. Like, there's a lot of stuff you can do with this. Like, but it's just, it gives us time to introduce us to all the Koopalings, maybe even do something with Bowser Jr. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with this. And then the story and the episode ends with Celia meeting Bowser finally, and then saying, "I'm your daughter," and everyone's like freaking out. What? Like, you can even throw in a whole thing like everyone's trying to pick her brain. And then when it comes to Bowser, it's like, I have a secret. And you could probably even reference, like, each of them coming to their own conclusions, and then all of them not. And probably, like, something like Morton probably saying, she's probably, like, her daughter or something. I don't know. And then you end episode 1 on Celia telling Bowser she's her daughter. She's his daughter. And then leave that. And then have episode 2 pick up after that with Bowser, kind of accepting her, like, because he's like, I don't want to hurt her feelings, sort of thing. Like, have it start with that, with him kind of with hesitantly saying yes, and then have it pick, and then have the same thing happen in the second half of this version, episode 1. In the version I'm reviewing, with like her and Roy, with them confronting Bowser saying I was lying because I don't want to hurt feelings, and then Roy and Celia going to find her dad. Have it be the same way, with like them meeting the grandparents, them going to the Starbite Society, going to the Illusion Forest, but kind of just expand upon it a little bit, so that way we have more aspects on Celia's character as much as we can, as well as having this episode dedicated to also building up Roy's character. So that way you have episode 1 dedicated to everyone but Roy, so that way you have episode 2 to do as much as you can with not only Roy, but with Celia. And kind of just expand the world, expand Celia's character. In terms of plot, just keep it the same. Like, they go meet the grandparents. The mother's very much hates the granddaughter. The grandfather's like kind of sorry for that. They go to the Starbite Academy. They both have Starbites. They kind of show what that society, because you can actually build that part up as the story goes on, since they're technically members of the Starbite Society now. And then they go to World 6. They get the memory orb. They go to the Illusion Forest, and then they meet the father. Just keep that part as is. Just expand it, and that's fine. I do, and that's pretty much what I would do with the story. Again, keep episode 1 dedicated, just introducing us to the characters and what they're like. Leave the monkey thing on its own to possibly make into its own story, because again, there's a lot of things you can do with that, and just have episode 2 be basically the second half of the story being just expanded. That's pretty much it. So that is my review of Super Koopalings episode 1. This has been Dark Symphony 777. And that. What are you saying? You're not saying anything. What, we're going to Raccoon City? What could be at Raccoon? Oh. We're doing my favorite Resident Evil story next, aren't we? I can't wait. I really can't wait to show you the next story. This has been Dark Symphony 777 and cut.